we look at the best subscription models outside of healthcare, let's think Netflix or Apple or Spotify or Amazon Prime. They're not constantly reminding customers that they can cancel. They focus on why the service, why the product is worth staying for.
This podcast is produced by Concierge Medicine Today, LLC. All rights reserved. Concierge Medicine Today, or CMT, was founded in 2007 and serves as the industry's trade publication and annual medical conference organizer. Please note, the information shared on this podcast and across all CMT platforms is intended for general informational purposes only and may contain errors or omissions. Nothing in this podcast nor across CMT platforms constitutes medical, financial, legal, nor professional advice, and CMT is not liable for any inaccuracies. CMT encourages listeners to conduct their own research and consult trusted advisors before taking any action based on the content presented. No mention, interview, or link should be considered an endorsement. This content is primarily intended for a healthcare audience and may not apply to all listeners. Thanks for tuning in.
Good. Happy July 4th. I hope you're having a great summer. And I hope you have some great plans with family and friends this weekend for the long weekend. Or maybe you're watching this from the beach or a mountain cabin, or maybe you're watching this from your car, wherever you might be catching this stream today. I truly hope that you're, as a Canadian, I just got all the text from my family up north. Happy Canada Day for those of you that are watching from up north. I hope that you're having a great summer. And if you're looking for stuff to read, by the way, we have on conciergemedicinetoday.org, we have posted our 50 plus titles that your colleagues in healthcare, especially in concierge medicine, and those who are kind of on the boundaries of concierge medicine, have said, here's what's on my nightstand, here's what's in my Audible library. And there are some amazing books, some clinical stuff in there, but mostly how to be a better person, how to be a better, some of the stuff that's more fun, pleasure reading. You can go to conciergemedicinetoday.com or .org. But also don't forget, we also have our annual industry conference where we've got other authors, other physicians, other scientists who are going to be coming this October 16 through 18. Go get your tickets. They're still on discount, conciergemedicineforum.com. But today I want to talk, before we move into the busiest, one of the busiest seasons, probably maybe the first or second, depending on where you're at of the country. One of the busiest seasons is the fall, as students come back to school, visits and sicknesses and all these colds start popping up, and the flu season. And typically we see in membership medicine, healthcare delivery, these subscription-based healthcare delivery practices of all price points, we start to see that September, October, August, those are months where the memberships renew, they jump in. Also January, February as well, right? You know this from looking at your numbers, because if you're a good business practice, you're probably looking at your numbers on a regular basis. But today I want to talk about this churn discussion, or this why patients are leaving, and the doctors, unfortunately, in some of these low monthly fee, no insurance, no Medicare models, typically at price points, usually 2 digits or less per member per month. Again, no long-term contracts, no insurance entanglements, just in network or anything. But I've seen this conversation, and I think that it's something to be aware of and kind of concerned about. It's kind of like you're keeping an eye on your pre-diabetic patients, but you're hoping that they don't go full blown. I know from experience. And from a patient perspective, it's a little concerning to be an observer of these practices. Again, the low monthly fee subscriptions, no Medicare, no insurance, but to watch the comment threads and some of the conversations from physicians themselves about, you're a patient and you can leave at any time. And here's what I tell my patients. And maybe we're talking about less than 5 or 10% of patients in these panels. But if you've only got 100, 150, 250 patients, telling your patients that they can leave at any time just because they're a difficult patient, yeah, maybe that's the right call. But at the same time, where's the leaning in? Where's I know we can make this work, like we can work on this. Those are things we can work on. Here are things you can work on. I have been through my fair share of therapy over the years. And hey, no relationship is perfect. You know that to be true as well. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. But before I jump in, the preface for the whole conversation that if you have to leave early is think about this, okay? And then we're going to elaborate on some detail. The best subscription models, when you look outside of healthcare, because I love showing the parallels between what's happening in subscription and memberships outside of healthcare, because it's a part of our everyday life. Like, how many of you recently renewed your Netflix subscription, right? The best subscription models and the business lessons we can learn are coming about how we can apply those into your practice today are coming from outside the bubble of healthcare. And I think that there's such a conversation and a lack of business acumen related to physicians and healthcare and practice administrators that we don't know how to run these practices very well because we weren't trained on how to do HR and how to do accounting and how to do marketing and sell ourselves and not make yourself the product, but make yourself invaluable and irresistible to your local community. How do you do that? Well, when we learn from what's happening in the business world and parallel that over into healthcare, there's a lot of things that healthcare can learn. And I think small businesses, small medical offices, especially those I think that are already doing a great job are the ones in concierge medicine, which is why I think that have started to see over the last several years that they're kind of like I wouldn't say, well, it's the wrong stereotype, but they are the example that other health systems, executive health programs, small medical offices, urgent cares, retail clinics, group medical practices, urgent cares, they're looking at concierge medicine saying, you know what, I don't understand how they're doing everything, how they can do that, why they do that, but they sure know how to hire well, or they sure know how to treat a patient or treat their staff, or man, they sure appreciate their spouse, the physician's spouse. So when we look at the best subscription models outside of healthcare, let's think Netflix or Apple or Spotify or Amazon Prime. They're not constantly reminding customers that they can cancel. They focus on why the service, why the product is worth staying for. All right. So with that said, if you have to go and that there's only one thing you can take from that, I hope that that lands with you and you'll ponder it, consider it, overthink it, right? Don't want to overthink it. I'm an overthinker. Oh man, it's terrible. Nonetheless, why are so many doctors in these low monthly fee practices that don't participate in insurance, don't participate in Medicare? Their whole thing is, look, we want to be independent, no insurance entanglements, blah, blah, blah. Hey, I get it. That is reasonable, and those practices are invaluable to some, right? So why are some leaders, advocates, particularly physicians, this is what's concerning as a patient and as a healthcare writer, why are they emphasizing that? Well, look, you can leave at any time. I think that the rationale here is threefold. I think it demonstrates patient freedom and choice. And I'm all for patient freedom and choice. After all, I don't know what it's like to be a physician, but I do know what it's like to be your patient. And I do know what it's like to sit and wait for a specialist with my kid for 2.5 hours in a waiting room with no signal, no eye contact from the staff, right? I do know what it's like to show up at an office thinking I'm going to meet with the doctor with no word that he or she isn't even in today. I think it demonstrates freedom and patient choice. And I think that's great. I think that they want to highlight, these doctors' offices want to highlight, look, we have a lack of long-term contracts and there's no insurance entanglements here. And it positions these practices as, look, we're patient friendly and we're non-coercive. And I think that that's a good thing. We need more of that in healthcare. But I think that also signals for them accountability. And I think that the idea is that because patients can leave at any time, doctors must continuously earn their trust and satisfaction, creating a market-driven incentive for better care. And I'm all for that too. Now, here's the third one. I think it differentiates that low monthly fee, no insurance, no Medicare participation, typically two number per member per month model as an alternative. It differentiates that business model, that subscription-based healthcare delivery model from the traditional competitors down the street. And, I say competitors because that's what they are, right? Your urgent care is a competitor. Your doctor, who might be a friend down the road in a traditional fee for service practice, he's a competitor, right? If you're a jerk or you're really lovable and irresistible as their doctor, they see you as a competitor, right? They contrast, I think, this model, their model, with a bureaucratic system where patients feel stuck. And we do feel stuck. We're limited by network participation and in network versus out of network and trying to control costs from a patient perspective and red tape. But I think that the conversation about constantly talking about on physician blogs and these types of things, why is this becoming, I think, a negative stereotype? Why is it like the sniffles, but now we can start to see that this cold is moving into the chest and could end up being, pneumonia, the flu, whatever. Well, I think that what we're starting to see in these conversations, and this is a concerning trend line that I'm seeing. I don't see it in concierge medicine as much. I see it in these low monthly fee models. However, I think that constantly talking about patients leaving in these models and these low monthly fee models and amongst your peers, I think it's reinforcing and unintentionally promoting some negative messaging, some negative stereotypes. The first stereotype is I think that it implies instability or a lack of value. And this could be from the lack of business training, the lack of business acumen, because when you imply instability and lack of value in your marketplace, your competitors are going to see, okay, they're a little bit unstable. We're gonna just keep an eye on them because they're probably not gonna make it. I wonder where they'll be in 2 years. And if a patient can leave at any time, a skeptical outsider is going to think, well, what's the value of staying? Because if you think, it's the old adage, if you think that people who had a negative experience aren't going to talk about that negative experience to their friends, their family, their coworkers, they will. I wish it was flip-flop the other way. I wish we could flip the boat and say, look, if I had a positive experience, I'm going to tell 12 people about it. And if I have a negative experience, I'm going to tell 3. Life doesn't work that way. So if a patient can leave at any time, and that's something that you're continuously thinking about, wrestling with, a skeptical outsider that this patient had a negative experience about is going to talk to and say to their friends, and that friend is then going to say, well, why did you even stay? Like, what's the value of even staying there? Rather than showing confidence in the model, in the practice, it feels a little insecure. Like the doctor is always worried about the churn. And in these low monthly fee, no insurance, no Medicare models, what I'm starting to see is they all need more patients, right? Like, why have we seen such a influx of marketing and SEO and websites? I mean, we've seen so many of those businesses come into that particular niche in subscription-based healthcare delivery, where it's low cost, low monthly fee, no insurance entanglements, et cetera. And we've seen all these marketing companies come into that area. Well, it's because they're not exactly great ad marketing or selling themselves. Now, again, I'm a fan of anything that brings the patient-physician relationship closer together. So I hope I'm not coming across as negative. What I'm coming across as saying is, look, I need you. I recognize that your voice has weight. Your words as my doctor in that model weigh 1,000 pounds. You're probably one of the most influential voices in my life, behind my wife and kids. So I need you to be around, and I need your business model to be stable next year, in 5 months, in 3 years, right? And I don't think we're having I don't think we're recognizing in that space the long-term consequences of thinking about, well, you can leave at any time. It's a double-edged sword. Here's another negative stereotype. I think that it downplays the long-term relational aspect of that model or of your care. You see, subscription-based healthcare works best when it builds trust and continuous relationship over time. And so repeating that, hey, you know what, you can leave anytime, it's It's awesome. This is great. I think it undercuts the very essence of that relational, longitudinal business model in relationship that you're trying to create in your local community. Here's another stereotype. I think that it undermines the physician's authority and your expertise. The best subscription models, like I said earlier, outside of healthcare. Let's think about Amazon Prime, your Hulu, Peacock, your Apple, Spotify. Maybe you have a Fitbit subscription, whatever it might be. They are not brands that are constantly reminding their customers that they can cancel. They focus on why the product is worth staying for. You see, here's another stereotype too. I think it's training patients to see healthcare as more transactional and not relational when we're having these types of conversations. And I know that erodes this idea that a physician is a guide and a coach and a trusted professional, which they are, but not just a subscription you can cancel at any time, like a gym membership, right? I mean, we talk about this. I've heard this touted over the years that healthcare should be much more like, well, you don't pay for your oil changes with your insurance. And that's right. But now you're becoming a transaction. Well, no, that's a membership. That's why we're charging memberships. Well, here's another thing to consider about this negative stereotype of patients can leave at any time and kind of almost being proud of that. I think it suggests that the practice lacks a retention strategy. So consider this. If you have the freedom to leave, is the biggest feature being promoted? I think it hints at a lack of other tangible benefits like convenience and trust building innovation and quality outcomes. And most importantly, I think between you and me, relationship building. So here's a better way to frame this conversation. And I think that this is probably going to be a little unpopular, and that's fine. I've taken my fair share of arrows over the years, but I think that we have to push and to try to make healthcare just a little bit better than how it found us. And these are just ideas. These are just my opinions. And I come from a marketing and business background, and I come from a healthcare and a patient perspective. And I love what's happening in subscription and membership medicine as a whole. But I see some things that are a little concerning, like that's a concerning trend line. And that conversation, it's kind of like when you have an employee and they start gossiping and it's creating problems in the practice in front of other customers and patients. And you're like, I got to deal with it, but I don't know how to deal with it. Well, here's a better way to maybe deal with it. This conversation. Here's a better way to frame the idea of you can leave anytime. Rather than focusing on, look, you can leave at any time. Successful small practices and big practices alike, I think would benefit more from framing it like this. We earn your trust every single day, every single text, and every single month or every single year. We earn your trust every single month, every single day, right? I would love to hear that from my doctor's office. Here's another thing. We're confident you're going to stay because we deliver value, not because of contracts. I mean, I'm not saying you should use these or not use them. These are just ideas to think about. Here's another one. Our model is built around transparency, relationship, trust. Not a lot of red tape. That's marketing 101, right? I love that idea. So here's the bottom line as we close for today, and you go on with your barbecues and think about your practice and the busy season coming up. The overemphasis on patient exit options, I think, sends the wrong signal to the public, to your local community, and to potential patients. Instead of sounding empowering, it sounds actually a little uncertain and unstable, which I think hurts the professional perception of physicians and even the viability of these small medical offices that are usually two-digit dollar figures per member per month with no insurance, no Medicare. I don't see this happening in concierge medicine, and I hope that it doesn't. But I'm sure it's out there. But I think it hurts the professional perception of physicians when we tell patients, look, you can leave at any time. And I think it hurts the viability of your business model in the eyes of skeptics, which there are a lot, investors, policymakers, colleagues, and even your team, but most importantly, your patients. So if you're building or promoting or marketing or having a conversation about a subscription-based medical practice, focus on why people stay, not just that they can leave. Thank you so much for your time today. Don't forget, register for our industry's annual conference, the Concierge Medicine Forum, coming up this October in Atlanta. Go to conciergemedicineforum.com and we'll have more conversations around stuff like this and so much more. But you won't get to hear from me. You're going to hear from your peers, your colleagues who are wrestling with this every single day. Go to conciergemedicineforum.com. Thank you for your time today, and we'll see you next week.